Welcome to the Lighthouse. I'm your host, Ryan Hopenhauser, and this is the show for business leaders to unlock their full potential. Together, we're going to explore the tools, strategies, and insights that you can use to navigate the complexities of the entrepreneurial mind, maintain your mental wellness, and elevate your leadership to take your business and your life to the next level. Each episode, we're going to bring you powerful conversations with various leaders across multiple industries who have the mindsets, strategies, and tools that they've used to transform their own journey. So whether you're here to lead your team better, grow your business, or take your life in a completely new direction, this is the show for you. Let's illuminate your path forward. Today, I am excited to have a very special guest of mine, Michael Watkins, today on the Lighthouse. Michael is a dad. He is my unknown mentor dad. Just watching him over the years is where I learned how to be a dad. Former gym owner. He is now a virtual CFO with the Inspire Financial Group. He brings a unique perspective, I think, to leadership with all of his experiences and his backgrounds, specifically in the business world, and how do you blend that world of leadership, mental health, and just the entrepreneur mindset, but also financial success. He is from Oklahoma. Michael knows what it means to roll up his sleeves and get to work, whether it's coaching his clients, leading his team, or guiding business owners towards their financial clarity and achieving their goals. As a virtual CFO, he's not just about the numbers. He is someone who's about helping entrepreneurs see the bigger picture, align their vision with financial strategies, and create a lasting impact for their business and their families. And in this episode, we are going to dive deep into Michael's journey in entrepreneurship, from the lessons of running a gym, challenges of balancing fatherhood and entrepreneurship, and how mastering both the financial and mental sides of business can lead to massive success. You're in for a powerful conversation about leadership, resilience, and building a business that serves your life. It's not going to be the other way around. So welcome to the show, Mike.
So happy to be here. Thank you. And what an intro.
Mike, the place that we'd like to jump right into on the show is just talking about, fill the audience in, your journey, what your experience was, what got you into entrepreneurship, and then we'll go from there.
I thought about that, what got me here, and really, it does go back to where I'm from. My upbringing from small town Oklahoma down in southeast corner. It's the metropolitan of the southeast corner, though, because we're the biggest city down there at 18,000. The only variables, I believe, that have ever affected that number in population is how many the state pen is housing at the time, because we own that down there as well. And then also if the natural gas and oil are drilling or not, because we're very energy sector down there. So, yeah, but I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but I absolutely loved where I grew up. I loved the Oklahoma life, small town, riding your BMXs across town 15 minutes and then out to the lake for the next 30 minutes. And then as long as you're home before street light comes on, you're okay. Things that my kids will probably never get to experience. Right. But when you asked me that question, when I was thinking about that, it's like, hey, what led you to becoming a business owner, entrepreneurship? I don't think it was ever a doubt in my mind, which is weird to say because, well, I say that, and the reason being is because of the men in my life growing up. All of them were business owners. My dad, he bought the business went in the partnership with my great uncle, who bought it from my grandpa, his brother. So, and then my dad bought everybody out, and then he sold it to my other uncle, who married into the family. So everyone I knew as a mentor in my life was a business owner. And that includes extended uncles and cousins outside of that. Again, everyone's a cousin where I grew up. So it never crossed my mind that I wasn't going to be in business for myself, but I didn't really, even though I didn't really know how or where, right? So I go to college and I'm experimenting with where I want to, focus my studies. Actually, I was always going to be health and exercise science. I just didn't know if I was going to, what I was going to do with it. Looking at physical therapy, realized you really can't make any money there. Honestly, you can, but I was, at the same time, I'm my own practice. Easy. I went to PA, looked at that route for a little bit, didn't want to do the med school deal. And then I stumbled into personal training. Basically, I was flipping cheesesteaks in a restaurant and this personal training gym opened up. And again, fitness had always been there for me. When I was growing up, it was my rescue, had some stuff going on, family stuff. And that's where I found my relief, was there in football. And so I was like, well, I'll go train people. I can always do that. And at that time, one-on-one training was brand new to the industry. It was 2004. So you still had to go to a big gym to find a trainer. No one wanted to do that. We just introduced basically studio style training.
Yeah.
And so I walk in this place, get the job, and we blow up. I mean, the dude that owns it, he's only a few years older than me. Great guy. I see what he's able to do. I see that I actually love doing this, and you can actually make money doing this. And I'm actually one of the few that's going to use my bachelor's when I'm done because it's in the, you know what I mean? So I did it. I jumped in and I went full in on that as a trainer, became a manager. In like 3 years, I became a partner with the guy who was my boss at the time. We had moved from then Norman to Tulsa, where he had opened up another 2 studios, or one. He opened up one. I moved over. I bought into that one, helped him build another one. And so like 3 years from college, and I'm rocking. I started a family. I just got married. We moved and started a business. And I was like, the 3 things that are the most stressors in life, right? Did them all at once.
big life event. And actually, I've done the same thing, and I've done it
right
too, because we just we just moved, sold the business, and had a baby. So
exactly. I mean, like they say, those are the 3 biggest stressors, and you and I are the guys who choose to do them all at the same time. So it's funny because I followed that trend every year we had. So when I had my first, so that was when we first got married. X number of years down the road, I have to go back and do the math. We have our first child. Well, I buy my business partner out with the gyms at the time, become sole owner. So again, let's add 2 stressors out of the 3. I think we probably moved at that time too, actually. And then 3 years later, we have our daughter. I opened up another location, and I think we moved shortly after that too. Like a couple of years. That's just like, dude, we got to stop.
It is, anyway, but it is interesting, like that habit of like, there's like a level of calm in that chaos.
Well, you and I know, because we've had those conversations before. We got used to so much chaos, it seems like, through all this. We'll probably talk about it at some point today, especially on leadership styles. But that the chaos becomes comfortable, and when you don't have it, you create it. Yep. Until you can realize, like, wow, I operate way better without it. It's just I got to get comfortable operating without it.
Yeah. No, I totally understand. One thing before we go forward on your journey, I wanted to jump back to is, you mentioned getting into like football and training, and that was a part, like it was to save yourself, like, and help yourself. And I think that that's something for a lot of trainers, like especially in like the fitness world, health world, is like, I was the same way. Like, I didn't get into working out because I liked working out. Like, I got into working out because of the pain I was experiencing, and like that helped me get through it. So I just find like it's interesting that I feel like a lot of us in that fitness world, we kind of start in that same place. Is like we got into training to save ourselves. So it's a natural progression then to go and get into business to help save others, help show them like, look what I found,
Yeah. And I think, and if you can, be successful at it or have a run like you and I did, it's because you're living it, right? I mean, like you see that. Like I always told people, when you have a client and they lose 100 pounds, like that physical change is amazing. It truly is. But when you're on that journey with them for however long that takes, and you see the internal change and the emotional change and the confidence change, like that's the most rewarding part, right? And you've experienced that in some degree in your life. So when you get to share that, like you're truly leading, you're truly like, that's your purpose. So that's what you're here to do.
Not to make this about me, but that's how we got to this point for me. And like in this journey, in this show, was like, came to the understanding that everything I created in my life that was most fulfilling came from helping others from my own suffering. So to that point, like training, I got into training because that saved me, and watch that training affect others and get to see, like I used to tell our clients, like, yes, I would love for you to lose weight, but I don't care how much weight you lose. I care what you do with that person after. Like, who do you become as a result of that? And like, what are you going to go do with this new confidence and this new energy and all that stuff? So fast forward to now and going through like a mental transformation these past 5 years, and I'm seeing what it's done for me. It's like that same thing. It's like, I want to show you what's on the other side of that, because our talk about chaos, like it doesn't need to be chaos, in terms of business. But it's just so interesting. Like
anything, in terms of anything, you start chaos everywhere, cascading effect of consequences, right?
Yeah.
If it's not at work, you're going to create it somewhere else.
Yep.
Till you realize I don't have to live with that. Anyway. Yeah. That's a whole nother, you would schedule another call for that one. So.
Well, I think that's a great segue into like leadership in general, and thinking of your progression over time. Because again, like we both did that. We created chaos in multiple points in our life, but for yourself and making that transition from college into business owner, or into employee, into partner, into business owner. And then now where you are, what does that evolution look like for you in terms of leadership? Like, how have you been able to handle stress better, remove some of those blocks and like subconscious patterns that you were dealing with?
I was thinking about that. How did I lead originally? Because I have a unique gift. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging, but I truly find myself in leadership roles, like typically whenever I dive into something. Like, Someone's got to raise their hand, right? But when it specifically comes to businesses, I did not lead well early at all. When you asked me that, leading up to this call, it's like, man, I got to dig deep. Because even though I told myself I was leading, I was not. I was a boss. I was like, the best way that when I really got down to think about it, I was that guy. You see that infographic of the boss who's like whipping the chains of the employees, pulling the chariot or whatever forward. That's what I was. I truly was a boss like that because I was, in my mind, leading it was like my leading was I took the risk to open this. I took the risk to open this. I took the risk to give you a job. Now do what I say and lead me towards our business goals. Or pull me, not lead me, pull me towards my goals. I mean, really, when I look back, I'm like, wow, you really kind of did that, And at the time, honestly, really before I met you and the group we met through, those were the style of business mentors that were kind of in my life at that moment. Mm-hmm. And one of them was the business coach. I was paying good money. And I mean, he was driving that point home because it was successful that was chaos, really. That's where chaos kind of started and lived and breathed. It wasn't until I realized and really, and I don't know when the switch was when I got out of that industry, but it was like, hey, and maybe before that, I guess. Took extreme ownership. We know that term, but extreme ownership of everything, realizing all the failures and all the successes were my fault. And that's okay. That's good and bad, right? And when you can do that and you realize, then you start to able to really, I guess, communicate your vision for whatever you're doing. Yep. And then when you can communicate what you're doing and what your goals are, and you're taking extreme ownership of that, now you go find other people who buy into that or believe in that same vision or have a similar vision that's going to get them to their goal as well, right? And Absolutely. You bring those people on your team, and instead of worrying about cracking the whip for pulling you towards your goals, now you're going to pull them towards their goals. Yeah. You're in front. So now I'm pulling, that's where the infographic flips, right? So now I'm pulling them towards their goals, which ultimately is going to do two things. One, it's going to fill my cup because my purpose in life is not business ownership. It's not personal training. It's not financial work. It is being a coach in some asset or prospect of the word, whatever you want to say, purpose of the word. It's just to be a coach for somebody. So it's going to fill my cup if I can do that for somebody. But ultimately, if they're in line, if they're in vision and they're in line, they're on my team, they're in line with my vision as well. So if I pull them to their goals, it's going to pull me to my goal. Yeah. So that was the evolution. I can't necessarily say when it happened. I can know when it started to happen was kind of the era of extreme ownership and 20X. That started the chain. But like you said, it's taken 5 years to get here.
You were still in fitness for sure. Because I remember you and seeing you over that time period make that transition. And just before.
But I was transitioning out because it was. I had just done Seal Fit when I was actually started in this industry, and I still had the gyms plus this. I was giving them both a year at the time to really figure out which way I needed to go. I was like, hey, I'm gonna do both for a year. That was a stressful year.
There's chaos again.
I was like, hey, more chaos. But I knew at one point I was gonna be like, hey, I need to go full tilt over here. Or maybe like, hey, this isn't what I need to do. I need to go full tilt back into the gym. And I really missed that. I was gonna give myself those two options. So
So I got a question
right
for
in that
you.
mix.
Looking at that through a psychological lens, would you call that transition the shedding of the ego?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I understand what that means, absolutely.
Like that's the one thing, like, as I've been doing this work, especially these last 2 years and trying to piece together like my business mind and my psychological mind, like, and put all these like different systems and theories that I've learned over the years together. That's one of the things I've come to understanding is like, the journey of entrepreneurship is actually the spiritual journey of consciousness raising. Yeah. And it's like, and it's shedding and like one of the last things before you can reach this level of like reason and willingness or peace or love or any of that stuff is like, I need to shed the ego because like that ego, and it's got that grip on you where you believe those things that like, I deserve to have this and they should work for me and crack that whip. And like, I can think back at some of the stuff I used to say and like looking at it now, it's like, wow, like I can't believe I ever said that. But at that time, I thought it was right. Like I thought it was good, and a lot of
it was right. You couldn't convince you otherwise. That was the ego. So
Yeah.
now I know I'm wrong a lot of the time, but I got people around me that I can bounce off of and find the answer. So I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room anymore. I mean, I'm in the wrong room.
Can you think of, if you think back just to those earlier days, can you think of a time where like you understood the mental side of business, like you became aware that like, wow, like I got to work on this thing too? Like, do you remember that moment where you started to see like I need to change the way that I think?
I think in some regards, it goes back to when, like I said, we all kind of connected. I mean, really, but it never took hold. And what I mean by that is introduced to the idea of actually mental wellness within entrepreneurship. I mean, we kind of were, right? We were actually, and then I got away from all that. But I feel like in the last 2 years, honestly.
Yeah.
And then what I mean by that is I put myself in a better position for that too. I changed firms. I moved my practice from one to the other. And I'm at a firm now where we preach this. Like, we talk more about how are we investing in our lives outside of work more than we ever talk about what strategy we're putting into an investment portfolio. So I've surrounded myself with guys who that's what we do every day. You know what I mean? And that helps when you have to. And so I think really, I hate to even admit that. I mean, it's kind of why I'm having hard to answer the questions, because I think is really in the last 2 years, I'm like, man, you got to get right upstairs or nothing. Everything else is so fleeting. That's the problem. Yeah. It's like, I had a record year and who cares? Like, it was cool for a moment. So the last 2 years though, I realized, like, I don't know, I got sick of like having awesome success and still being pissed off about it.
Yeah.
No, missing something.
Dude, I totally understand, man.
You know what I mean? I mean, that's the best way I can put it, I guess. And I was sick of everyone around me wondering if he was pissed off or not.
I was in that exact place, and I know you'll be able to appreciate this, and this will probably take us into fatherhood. But
let's go.
I always write, like I write notes in my journal, but I write them to my son a lot. And one of the things I wrote was like I thought that getting jacked would make me happy, so I got ripped. So I got jacked and ripped. I thought that money would make me happy, so then I got rich. I always thought that having a child would hold me back from being happy and achieving all those things. And then I had you, and for the first time in my life, I felt happy. Like, and I think that like it hits home. Like, you realize all those other things are so fleeting. Mm-hmm. Like you might, like I can, like any accomplishment I ever had in business, man, like I never felt that for more than like a second. Like, and I think I shot a video of us down here. Like, we rented a beautiful apartment. Like, it's so amazing. It was gone in 2 seconds, man. Like, it was so cool for a moment. And I think like you nailed it right there. Like all the other, like it's so fleeting that the one thing, if you get this right and you understand what's valuable, like that feeling doesn't fleet anymore. Like, and if there's one
your voice, you're talking about your kiddo.
Yeah. I've got a lot better in my emotional range, and I can change that now. Because before I was stuck as the angry man, and I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? No. I couldn't tap into that.
No, but it goes back to the original conversation of just what we were saying earlier about stripping things away. Just stripping them away. And I'm not saying money's bad. Heck no. It's a tool though.
It's a beautiful tool.
It's a tool. So anyway.
So looking back, if you could go back into tell your younger self at that time, what would you tell? Like, what would be a piece of advice, like just in terms of leadership, that I'd say, one, that you'd either give them, or two, that you'd tell them to unlearn?
Yeah, I thought about that too. Well, I mean, I think we touched on it a little bit. Is one, take extreme ownership. Realize early and often that you're the key. It's your business. But one is communication. Like, dude, you've got to clearly communicate. I really, truly, ultimately feel like 99.9% of any problem can be solved with communication.
Yep.
And that's truly it. So communication. But really, there was a couple things. So one was extreme ownership. And this kind of goes back to what we were just talking about. But when I looked at that question earlier, I wrote down identify and silence the lies early. Mm-hmm. And that's the lies we tell ourselves. Yep. Right. Going through some of the stuff, he said, hey, we may talk on this. I was like, this is great, because it's actually what I'm going through right now. I mean, I recently hired a therapist to start talking to a couple times a month, and just to talk. And the things we're talking about, like, learn how to communicate properly. Like, again, I wish I'd have done it 20 years ago, but I'm doing it now. That's great. Things like that. But it comes down to, I look at the way interact with people at 5 a.m. at a workout when I'm dead tired and I'm bubbly and I'm interested in them and I'm, even if it's forced. And then I can turn around and tell myself in the same breath, I'm the biggest piece of shit there is out there.
Yep.
And believe it. And if you do that for long enough, and the thing is, they're so quiet at first. Mm-hmm. When you have that first bad month, your first year, I go, dude, this isn't for you. You're not a business owner. You're a joke. You don't even hear it, right? It's kind of whisper. But then they just continually compound and they change. They go from the business, they go to your family, they go to your terrible father, your terrible husband, they go to your terrible friend. They stack up. And that's when you find yourself going on a 5-year journey like you are, right? When you've had everything that's successful, but yet I'm not. Why? Yeah. Same thing with me. I had to change industries to really go find that freedom. Same thing with you. Not that the industry was bad, we left. It's just we needed something different. And when I learned and just talking with this through Dr. I'm seeing and talking to, and Micah, my wife, was just like, I've told myself these lies for so long that you start to believe them and they become your reality. And that's what you see in the mirror. And everyone else sees this guy that you have created who is ultimately, if you were to see that dude on Instagram, you would follow him because he's doing everything. But internally, it's a war, right? And so I would tell myself, dude, identify those lies early, flip them, positive focus, make up a lie yourself that counteracts that one and tell yourself that every single day until you believe it. And then tell yourself that every single day until you really believe it. And then keep telling yourself that. Yeah, man. It's
like the words that you speak are so powerful. Like so
but we don't speak them out loud. We speak them upstairs and we negate them until the fact that they're running our thought process. That's when we were saying earlier, like, is Michael in a bad mood? He's really not, but he doesn't know how to respond right now because everything in his head is negative when he doesn't know why.
I look at it as like be careful of the monster inside that you created to protect you as a kid, because at some point they're going to turn on you. And
we talked about that in my last session. It's about you put those things in and eventually those container lids start popping up and you're like, whoa, I thought I didn't. So and it's crazy, but I think just like, in both those two things, communication is really good, but it's internal communication. And that's where, if you could just think back to your own your own gym on those roughest years. Not COVID, you can't take that into account because you did awesome through that. It's crazy. Well, as far as like pivoting, I was watching you online. I had just got out of the gym, so I was watching what all you guys were doing. But if you can build yourself up instead of tear yourself down, you will weather any storm so much easier because your faith isn't in that. It's in something else. It's in something bigger and it's in more in yourself. And then when those highs get up there, you will celebrate them for what they're worth as opposed to just taking a blink and then saying, what's next? I got to beat this again. No, you don't. You really don't.
Mm-hmm. It's such an interesting dichotomy, I think, with that too, because I've obviously thought a lot about these things myself over these last few years. And like, I find it so interesting that like, how can we hate ourselves so much internally, yet always bet on ourselves? That's like,
because we always produce,
you know what I mean? Like
we always find a way.
Well, and that's where what I've learned for myself is that hate, like that negative internal talk would create a level of frustration, and that frustration gives me energy because I get angry. And anger, it's like fire; it gives you energy to move. So if I got angry enough, then I would get to do the thing that I wanted. But then everyone thinks you're angry, and like it's a lose all the time. But it's just an interesting dichotomy that like you can hate yourself so much up here, but at the same time be willing to bet on yourself every single time.
Yeah, that is. I never thought of it that way.
Which I think is a unique aspect of being an entrepreneur is like you have that battle. It's a bipolar battle, which is exhausting.
It is. I think that's the best way to put it because I hate to put like a negative connotation on it, which I think we kind of have in this conversation, but it's exhausting. That's really what it is. There's a better way to do it. It's having these conversations and identifying things earlier, as your entrepreneurial life starts. So that, having guys like you and I have been through that and a new guy coming up, I hear in this conversation, like, okay, hey, I need to take note of that. Like it is a struggle, but I don't have to like hate it the whole time either. Not that I hated it. I really didn't. Like, I loved it.
Dude, entrepreneurship is the best thing in the world. I'd recommend it to everyone. Like,
still doing it.
the most amazing aspect of it. But again, like you could do it differently. When you try to suppress and repress these things to create internal battles, is like eventually they come up, and then it's very tiresome trying to keep it all under control. And that was what ultimately brought me to the breaking point, is like leading up to me having like literally a mental break, was telling my wife like for years, like, I'm just so tired. I'm just so exhausted. Like I'm so exhausted. And I wasn't physically tired. I was tired of the battle. You know what I mean?
But I was trying to think. You said something a minute ago, and I was like, you said, there's ways to do it better. We both said that there's ways to do it better, which is the same reason. Like we have these conversations. You follow guys like Bedros, and follow guys like Lewis Howes. Like they've already done this, and they've done it at such a high level. But they're all telling you, hey, I would have done it this way. Like I would have had, you know what I mean? Like I would, you know what I'm saying? Like, so absolutely.
Yeah. Like what I found is the better way to do it is to bring them all with you. Like you have
these parts. That's what I was trying to say. Absolutely.
Like you have these parts of yourself that become separated. And from at least what I have learned from the psychological aspect is like the route forward is integration. Like it's to bring everyone together. So like one of the things that in my experience of taking mushrooms is finding that I locked away like my inner child in my mind. So I wrote this, I think it's a cool meme, I don't know, but I like in an unpopular opinion from an alpha male who used to say I'm an alpha male, is there is no inner bitch to kill. There's just the child that you locked away begging to get out. If you bring them together and like meet those parts, meet the monster, meet the the tough guy, and like, hey, like it might sound weird, talk to them and be like, I don't need you right now. Like, thank you. I really appreciate the anger, but we don't need that at this moment. Like we can handle this.
It serves a purpose. And again, you mentioned anger earlier. It gives you energy, and literally, emotions are emotions. We put the connotations on them that we will, whether it's good or bad, right? Sometimes being angry is not bad. It's not inherently bad. We decide it is, right? It takes a lot more energy. It takes a lot more out of you. That's all we're saying. I mean, at the same time, if I had believed the truth that I could operate and produce at the same level, probably even higher, by not using as much energy through anger, if someone could have convinced me of that then, it would have been a much easier process. I mean,
I don't think I could have been convinced though.
That's what I'm saying. If you could have convinced me and I could have believed you. I was so used to it. Like I said, even when I decided to change industries at the time, the gym was doing better than it ever had. Really, I mean, it was, it was running itself to a degree. I was still training way too much. I was a terrible delegator. It's just, I was to the point where I was going to start fires just to put them out. I was like, maybe I should go look at something else.
I have an interesting question that you said that, because I think that that's one of the things that I was just talking with someone the other day about this, is like, how like the difficulty of stepping away from and letting go of something that's working to leap towards something that you don't know what it is, but are absolute certain or feel it's the right direction. Like, can you talk about making that transition when you had to leap? Like,
it was the inner peace. Like I had fast, very, very quick start in this industry, which is great. I mean, it was, and it's another conversation of why I think, but I had a fast start, so I saw that
you're a fucking killer.
Well, it's another coaching role. Like I told you earlier, my purpose is coaching. It doesn't matter if it's like personal training or if it's financial, fitness is like literally how I started my career. Is like, hey, you've trusted me this long with your physical fitness. Let me show you what I can do and my team can do with your financial fitness. Like that was my pitch. It was just introductions, as I was learning. But I had fast success, so I saw the opportunity there. Not only financially. It did put us in a good spot, but I was at so much more peace when I was at work at that office versus when I was back in the gym, because I was still splitting my days. I would go in the gym at 5 a.m. or 4:45, 4:30, open it up, train a few sessions up until about 7:30, jump into my suit in my office, run down to my 8 o'clock meeting, and I would work financial services up until about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, pick my kids up, go straight back to the gym, train from 6 to 9. My kid would come in, do her workout, pick the kids up, take them home. I'd come home at 9:30 or whatever, and do it all again. I did that for about a year. Like I said, I saw where I was operating in a much more peaceful space and actually producing at a higher level and where I wanted to be. I mean, like I said, God was telling me like, hey, dude, like I opened this door, you got to walk. And so I did. And, but to kind of answer some of your questions there, in order to take that risk, so I had early success and I saw the opportunity. So I didn't see it as a risk in that regard. I really didn't. And I also knew, this is something we talked about back in the day, was every time I doubled down on myself, I was successful. Every gym we opened and we were successful. We did it. You said, whether it was chaotic or not, I was able to make it work. And we did well with it. So I knew I would be fine there. And then I think the hardest part, to be honest with you, the hardest leap, well, it's because I was an internal battle, was bringing my practice from where it was to my new firm because of loyalty and you're starting. That's where I had more mental battles because, again, like this book wasn't going to follow me over here. I was going to a competing firm, basically.
Yeah.
And so, I was literally starting over in the same industry, but I even had, once I really let go of my ego and all that we talked about, pride and fear, and realized, because I told you earlier about the guys I was surrounding myself by leaving here and going there. Once I really accepted that, even in spite of the fear of actually quote unquote starting over, like it was like, okay, we're good. I tried to create options for myself. That's what I always try to do. What are my options in this regard? So the first one was the gym or the financial services industry, right? Mm-hmm. And what are my options? Work them both hard as you can. Give yourself a deadline. You're going to put, it was tough. It was tough for kids and family and everybody, but there's an end in sight. We're creating options for ourselves. One of those doors will be closing, one of those will be opening. We're going to pray about it. We're going to listen to what God's telling us. We're going to listen to how we feel about it. And we're going to take a leap and jump through that door that's open. And I did that. I've done that twice in the last 6 years in this regard, 6 or 7 years. And it's been the most rewarding jumps every time.
Did you feel it first?
Feel it first, always.
Yep.
I felt it really before the numbers were there. Obviously, the numbers weren't there when I brought my practice over to the new firm. They weren't there. I didn't have anything there because I really was going to have to start over. And the cool thing was, I did a lot of good work in my previous practice, or my previous firm, that I didn't have to. I've not moved really anybody from there to here because I don't have to, because we did such a good job there. You know what I mean? Like so this is all new clients I'm working with.
Nice.
So I mean, it's been great. But it was hard to do that because I felt like I was leaving my colleagues. I was leaving my mentor, and all that and fear of starting over. But then again, what it came down to how do you battle that? It's just like, you have this inner peace. Like, here's what it was. I knew if I said, especially when I was moving my practice, I knew if I didn't take that, if I said no to that opportunity, again, because the guy was after me for about 3 years, which is awesome. Yeah. It's a funny story. But if I said no, I would regret it. I firmly believe that at that point, I would regret it. The other thing is when I did tell my mentor at my first prep firm that I was leaving, and I told him, and this is when he kind of bought in, like, man, you're doing the right thing. I said, look, I'm just doing the same thing you taught me to do. And he kind of looked at me funny. And I said, you're the one that gave me the opportunity to get out of the gym industry and into this, where really I'm supposed to be. You showed me what this is all about. You held my hand for the first year, but you showed me I can do this, and to double down on myself when I see a good opportunity for me and my family by coming here. I'm doing the same thing that you showed me. I'm sorry it's not here anymore.
Yeah.
And he agreed. He's like, man, if that's the way you feel it, it's time. I was like, it is. I know that. And I know it's hard to hear. I get that.
That's great communication too. Like, that's a great way to articulate what you were doing in a way that someone could understand.
Thank you. Try. But it was true. It was the truth.
I have a question about your transition too.
What's up?
You said that you noticed the inner peace. Did you see it first, or did Micah see it first?
Oh, probably her. I fought that, because it's change, and you fight change a little bit. As much as you seek it, you fight it.
Yep.
I'll tell you that I do have a good story about that. She definitely saw it first. I'm looking to see, because she's here. She's working at home too. So I knew I was leaving. This is bad. They don't ever watch this. They don't know me. It's okay. So, sorry. Maybe I listened to him. That I knew I was leaving, and I'm trying to talk to my mentor, who's our managing partner. I can't get a hold of him, and he's got COVID. And I really want to have this conversation face to face. And he gets it like badly. He didn't come to the office for 2 weeks. And like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to turn this in. And my new practice, my new firm is having a big kickoff party that they want us to go to down in Dallas. And I want to go. Like, I want to meet everybody in our Dallas branch. I want to, I want to get in with these guys who I'm going to start working with and really start meeting everybody. And I want Micah to go. But it's like that Friday, and he's still not there. Like the day before this party, or 2 days before, I turned in my resignation letter and I said, we did the whole spiel just so I could be clear, like, hey, I'm out. And anyway, so we get all that. And we go to this kickoff party. But I don't, there's cameras, a photographer, it's a big deal. And then these are all people our age. So social media is social media. And they're like, they get all the Tulsa office, all of our guys, like, hey, take a picture. And I'm like, no, I'm good, guys. Like, I'm not going to jump in the picture yet. It's like 2 days after.
Yeah.
So I know this will end up online. I'm here, but 2 seconds later, I turn around. Mike is in like all the wives pick, like in front of the backdrop, already. I'm just so she gets tagged, and of course I get a phone, or she gets a phone call while I'm coming back from Dallas the next day. Hey, what's Michael? So she obviously saw the inner piece first. She was loose. She's ready to go.
It was just, it made, when you were talking about that inner piece, I was just thinking of after 2023, and I killed my coaching business and I was about to restart it. And I started coaching gym owners. And it was my wife who told me that I was going back to the same place that I was in. And that's when I started, story. And that's when I shifted and I started talking about the stuff I wanted to talk about, but was too afraid to talk about, which is this. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I see you light up when you talk about that. You talk to anyone about it. You talk all the time about it. Like when you're doing the other stuff, you're back to being frustrated and angry, and you're trying to get something to do something. Like you're trying to do this to be able to do the next thing. She's like, just do the thing you want to do. And I was like,
and do it well and smile a little bit.
Thank you, man. Like,
well, there was before I moved my practice, I got called by a guy I know who's he's in the gym franchise industry, some of the big gyms around, and they were coming into the Tulsa market, and he hit me up and I actually offered to be like a managing partner role, which I have to throw in some money for equity, but I'd be running all of Oklahoma at some point. And I mean, the opportunity's there. So I'm talking to him a little bit, and we had a couple of conversations, and I'm talking to Micah about it. And that's when this is right before I decided to have a conversation with my new firm. But like I said, this was right before that. And she goes, do you realize you seem to be so unhappy at where you're at right now that you're thinking of going back into the gym industry? And I said, oh, I haven't thought of it that way. She's like, yeah, why don't you just pump your brakes and take a breath?
Those outside eyes.
Yeah. It's like, yeah, you're right. I don't want to do that. I did that for a while.
So many good insights there. Just one of the things we like to do, we like to have some fast questions. So just quickly, what does leadership mean to you in your eyes?
I think the best way to say it is pull people, like I said earlier, pull people toward their goals, but you have to live it. I mean, it's really, and I don't know how to phrase that together, but it really is like you just, and the way I always say is you lead from the front, right? You lead from the front and how you operate on a day-to-day basis. Like it's just part of you. You can't fabricate a leader. Mm-hmm. You can take as many courses as you want. You can take as many, I know this is a long question to a fast answer or fast question, but I don't know how to, I don't necessarily know how to answer that, but just saying you lead from the front. Like it's how you live.
Mm-hmm. I know, I 100%, I totally agree. What's one habit? Doesn't have to be a daily habit, but what's a habit that's made a big difference for you mindset wise? I
have to work out, sweat every morning, first thing. I used to do floated around, even when I was in prep, floated around when I could fit it in. Of course, you're doing 2-hour workouts for prep. You remember how that goes. So you may not have, but first thing in the morning, I got to do something. If I don't, it's a cloud. It's negativity. I got to break it up and realize, hey, you are a badass. Look what you just did. If you're 42 years old and repping out 405 for 6 still, let's go, old man. After a tech pair, shut up, noise.
Yeah. Get it.
I'm telling you, that's it. I mean, just whatever it is, the silence, that and pray. That's it. I mean, I turn everything over to God. I mean, I'm a believer. I'm faithful, or I try to be faithful. I used to put so many limits on prayer. You have to it's dear Lord, and very holy and very, what is it, a King James version, thou. But what I've learned is, and this is from my mother, because I lived on her faith forever, because she is, she's one of those First Baptist smiles when she talks about dying. Not that she wants to die, but she can't wait to get to heaven.
Yeah.
And I lived on her faith for a long time. And I realized what her faith is it's a conversation with God whenever she wants to talk to him, because he's always there to listen. He's always there. He's actually talking to us all the time. Usually he talks in a whisper too. So we have to silence everything to hear him. The devil and everything, whatever you want to call it, they yell at us. We can hear it all the time. God talks in a whisper. You got to be quiet. So it doesn't matter if it's in the dark. Doesn't matter if it's in your car. Doesn't matter if you got headphones on. It's anytime you feel like you need to talk to him, just have a conversation. So what I learned though is for my inner peace, I just turn everything over to him. I try to turn over all my successes, realize it was him, it wasn't me. You did it through me. You're using me as a tool to show me as a light for you. When I have failures or when I'm going through a tough time, help me. Please take this burden away from me. Give me that peace.
The only reason I asked about
so
the
prayer and physical is
because I was watching something recently, and they were talking about why you pray, like why to pray in the dark is because in order to receive God's light, your pineal gland must be open, and your pineal gland only opens like your third eye and only opens in the dark. Mm-hmm. It overlays into like consciousness and spirituality, and I'll share with you after we get off about God stuff because I've gotten.
You gotta tell me that. I've never heard that. I don't get too scientific with it, but obviously, you can always have a conversation.
Yeah, well, we're talking about. I was just talking about here. Like, I was never religious. I denounced religion, God, and all that stuff. Actually, I can tell you when I watched Home Improvement as a little kid, and I saw that the kid on Home Improvement told off his parents about religion, that he didn't believe in it. So I did, and at the time I was only operating in a logical brain. Since these last, and I still stuck in that mindset literally until 2023. And after going through everything and having like a spiritual awakening or consciousness awakening, I have this new understanding. And like, at least for me, like God is within. So you are God. I am God. Everything is God. If you allow it to be, like understanding that everything is that. Like consciousness is God. It all comes from there. Like, go looking at it like what I guess what I tell my son, like God is love, God is light. He'd never strike you down with his might. He'd always lift you up. He'd lift you high so your wings could touch the sky. He's here now. He's here then. He's here now. He's here. He's there. He's everywhere. In your soul, he will speak, even on the days that you feel weak. So listen close and look ahead for God's light to be shed, because he'll light your path and guide your way, because God is within you every single day.
What is that?
I wrote it.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Will you send that to me?
I will. It's a poem I wrote, because I've had so many weird things over this last year. It's what like earlier, talking about universal consciousness, where like I've had these moments where shit comes to me, and I've learned now to just capture and write it. So like I wrote that. I wrote a prayer for my grandpa who has Alzheimer's right now as well. And like, this is from someone who's not religious, but like, that's in that same context of what you were saying, like that's God speaking through me.
It is.
Because I am God.
Well, religion gets in the way.
And yeah, if you rip away all of the rules and regulations,
strip away.
And I think of like, I was walking last time I was home in New York, I was walking by a farmer's market and there's a girl outside handing flyers, and it was for a church. I didn't have a choice. I took the flyer and I look at the flyer and it's telling me how I am destined to burn. Mm-hmm. And if I do not go in and save myself, then I will be like, and it was so negative. And this was after I had my new understanding. I'm the guy, I can't help but correct someone or I can't.
Did you go back?
No, I didn't. I can't help but tell the truth, but I want to go and tell him like, that's not true.
No.
Because he's love, and if he's love, he could never hurt. And like, and that's where like going into just all of this leadership talk, bringing it back to an understanding of what love is, not from our Western society, because it's not like I think our Western society mistakes infatuation or desire for love, but that's not what love is. And understanding what love is, and that it emanates from the heart. And when you open your heart as a leader, it allows you to connect. And when you can do that and connect with others is when you actually make a change. Because all the other, the whipping that we talked about earlier, it might work to get the job done, but it's not going to empower the people to continue to do the next step without you whipping them, right? Whereas if you can
That's not
open your
leading.
heart to
That's a
them,
boss.
yeah, and connect with them, it's all different. So that was
Well, yeah. I mean, man, you hit the nail on the head. That was beautiful.
I think saying in the same line, I think I know your answer to this. What's a book or a resource you'd recommend?
I did write Extreme Ownership down.
I thought you were going to say the
Bible always. Oh, Bible always. I mean, I had those down. You know, the Bible is such a tool for anything, but I mean, people negate the business side of it and the lessons you can learn in there. But like I said, Extreme Ownership, when I originally read your question too, was the first book I thought of because, like I said, I think that's when my mindset started changing. Of really like, dude, it's on you. Like it really is, and that's okay. Maybe that's the point I didn't make earlier. Hey, it's your fault, and that's okay. Both good and bad, right? And you knew me during that time. We knew each other well. I mean, we were, doing all the pack stuff, and then you went through 20X before me. I think, did you go before me?
No, you went first.
Or after? Well, Joseph went first.
Well, you went before me, then I went.
I was texting him like, "Hey, don't spoil it for me, but what if there's anything I should know going into this?"
It's all mental. It's just mental. It's like just
always
understand. You never win. You always lose. That's how the game works, and it's okay. The game is to keep playing the game. Like so, like don't get frustrated when you didn't get the goal.
Such a good point. That was like, and people ask me about that because it is a fascinating deal we did. I mean, it really is if you give us credit for it, if we ever took credit for it. I always tell them like there's a moment when we were running like our 18th, 100th mile of some sort around this, and to the fence and back. And I literally told myself in my head, I could hurt my ankle right now or my knee. No one cares. No one's going to say anything. You got hurt. You're out. Cool. I could sit this out and say I'm hurt. Or I could just keep going and put, I had Callie right there too. You remember Callie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She was my boat partner, my swim partner. And so she's right there with me step for step. I know she can run faster than me. Dude, I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now at the time, and I kept taking the steps. I never let my ankle get hurt or my knee go out. I step after step. And that was one of the proudest moments of that whole evening was like, dude, like you literally told your inner bitch to shut up. That, you know what I mean? That entire evolution, like, because you were done, but you weren't, and you knew it. You believed it this time. And Callie was there. Like I said, it goes back to the point of surrounding yourself with those people. Callie was right there, step for step with me. Hopefully I was able to support her at some moment that night. But anyway, those two books. It'll be good. I was trying to think of another one too, but I don't have any up. I told you I'm redoing my office, so all my bookshelves are empty right now.
My last question, I think you already answered about like what's one thing you wish you knew about leadership from the start. So I would just say, is there anything you'd like to add after everything we've talked about today?
Yeah. Okay. So I think.
So about fatherhood. How's fatherhood?
Well, that's what I was going to pivot to a little bit because really, my son is 14 now. My daughter's 11.
That's so crazy.
I've coached my son in football. That ended this year. He started school ball, but I was super involved as well with them. I coach him in baseball still. My daughter's amazing, but they're at an age like he's on social media now. We're kind of strict parents. Like we didn't let him get anything till now. And we're connected and we have all this stuff there's some freaks out there. You know how it goes. So, and they're
be the same way. I totally understand.
Yeah. I'm just not, and he respects us for that. But I used to, anyway, I just use that as an example because now that he's on there and his friends are starting to follow me and they're starting, you know what I mean? Like these guys, these kids I used to coach and they're all getting older and all that. But I'm operating even on there more, even in the fake world out there. Like my kids are watching because they are. And my buddies' kids are watching because I coach them and they're following me because all of my stuff is usually about my kids, all the stuff they do and all that. And anyway, and working out. So I think like that's if I could leave with, and we can talk about fatherhood, but that's really how I try to operate. Like my kids are watching everything I do, and they really are. Not just on social media, they're watching everything we do, how we operate, when we freak out, how we freak out, how we treat their mother. So I'm trying to, and that also in your business. So operate, lead operate your business, whatever you're doing, like your kid or your future kid is right there in your hip pocket.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
gonna, but here's the deal. That doesn't mean you're always gonna succeed. You're gonna fail in front of them, him, her. You're gonna fail in front of them. How do you handle that?
Yeah.
Who are you really? Because that'll show.
Yes, it will.
And it took me a while to get that because they're so little, actually they're sponges when they're little, they're really watching you. And then you start seeing some of those things that you maybe wished you to handle better or how you handled things better pop up when they're teenagers now. And you see how they handle things. You're like, oh, that's like looking in a mirror.
Yep.
So now I got to go undo that. And how do I undo that? I lead differently. I react differently. In fact, I don't react. I respond now. That's my, new Pearl Jam song. Yep. React, respond. Don't react, respond. That was a big thing for me is learning. Hey, I don't have to react. Even if it seems like a crisis, it's not. I need to take a step back and digest it, process it. And then not only digest and process the problem, now I got to digest and process how I'm going to communicate the solution.
Yeah, 100%.
So why? Because my kids are watching. They're going to see how dad reacts to this.
I love that. Like, think to yourself, how would you want your son to handle the situation? Like when you're in that
absolutely
spot,
He's me to a T, good and bad. And I'm really looking at some of the things that I know, like, as bad habits, unfortunately, things can get passed down subconsciously generations, right?
Oh, yeah.
And like you literally have to consciously break the cycle. And I see things that I inherited from my dad that I know he inherited from his dad that trouble me, give me strife, or don't really facilitate how I want to operate sometimes, right?
Yep.
I see them in my 14-year-old son. And I'm like, shit. So I need to break that. I need to stop that with him because I know what it did to me or for me, against me, whatever. I'm not trying to put negative, but those things, right? And that's my job. But if I can lead like that with everyone else I lead at work, whatever organization I'm in, wherever I'm coaching, that's integrity. That's leading from the front.
Dude, I think that's so beautiful because, like, honestly, that's what all of this is about is like, you can't lead someone else until you understand yourself and to be able to lead yourself, because you're right. Like, you want to break those patterns. And if you don't understand yourself, you keep repeating them. And then you put it subconsciously into the children and it goes generations and generations. And like the only way to do it is to consciously, one, like awareness precedes clarity. Clarity precedes action. Yeah. Action precedes change. Like you need to be aware of how you operate. You need to make clear choices to change that, and action to change that, and continuously work on it in order to effectively make change over time. Otherwise, you fall back into the same pattern, and then they fall into the pattern, and everyone is like hitting yourself with a hammer and wondering why you're upset. So, well, because you're doing the same thing.
I think Bedros posted it the other day, and I shared it actually. He was saying like our main job is to create the next generation, and we do that through morals and integrity. And I'm like, yeah, that's really all we're really supposed to do, in my opinion. Because everything else, like, well, actually, if you operate that way at home, like, chances are you're doing that everywhere else too. Mm-hmm. And it'll lead to success. My kids are, I was looking at some of the stuff when we were going to talk about, you said it just now. And I remember you can't lead yourself. You can't lead others, because that was one of your deals. Like, how did you lead before and how did it evolve? And I was just like, I didn't lead myself before. Therefore, I couldn't lead anyone else. I was just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So I love it, man.
So good. So good. All right. As we wrap things up, where can everyone find you?
Oh man,
Fit Dad CFO.
Yeah, that's
Fit
probably
Dad CEO?
it. I mean, we're at planwithinspire.com is our financial wellness firm. We do things a lot differently. In fact, I will say this: we work with 95% business owners. That's our market as far as who we serve best. And I know that's who's probably listening to your show as well. So it definitely correlates there, but definitely planwithinspire.com if you need anything in the financial services industry. But really, it's a different game. But honestly, like, I'm very active on social media. And the reason being is, like I said, I don't think if you have to live your life, you have to live a life of leadership, you have to live a life of integrity. And I'm pretty much an open book. And so, you can find me at FitDad_CEO. Is it underscore? I don't remember anymore. I think so. FitDad CEO.
Well, awesome, dude. Thank you so much, Mike, for coming on the Lighthouse. There's so many great nuggets. Just some of the big things that Mike talked about today, understanding is like, being able to lead yourself comes number one. Like that was the big thing that he had to learn to do. And in doing that, talked about shedding the ego and getting rid of some of these bad habits and patterns and beliefs. Like, and specifically the stories you tell yourself, because if you keep telling yourself those stories, they absolutely do come true. And the only way to stop it is to change the story. So thank you again, dude. So great to have you on. It's been awesome.
Hey, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to the show. And if you are a small business owner and you are ready to unlock your true leadership potential, scale your profits, and build a business that actually thrives without you, here are 3 ways that I can help. Number 1, take the What Type of Leader Are You quiz. I'll leave it in the show notes. It's going to give you some great insights into the patterns that are basically running your leadership style and negatively impacting you and your team. The second way is the Lighthouse Leader Program. This is a intensive program for you to develop your leadership skills, remove the mental blocks that have been holding you back, and take you and your business to the next level. If you want to learn more about it, find me on Instagram, Ryan.Lighthouse. Shoot me a DM that says Lighthouse Leader and we can talk details. And finally, the last way would be to work with me privately. I do mentor small business owners and their teams to grow their business and remove the owner from the day-to-day operations. And if you want to learn how to do that, same thing. Go on Instagram, find me Ryan.Lighthouse, send me a DM that says mentorship. We can talk about the details of one-on-one mentorship and how I can come in and help work with you and your team. But thank you again for listening to this show, and stay tuned for next episode.